Have you ever felt that after achieving everything that seemed important, a stable career, a solid relationship, a structured family, something was still missing? That despite all your accomplishments, there was an inexplicable void inside. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of the 20th century, believed that true life does not begin when we follow society's imposed patterns, but when we truly find ourselves. He teaches us that we spend the first half of our lives building a social identity, our persona, but it is only in the second half that we can truly become whole. What may seem like a crisis or a loss of meaning is actually a call for transformation. And it is in this awakening that we discover who we really are. Let's explore this profound journey of self-discovery and understand why, according to Jung, life only truly begins when we find ourselves. From childhood, we are taught to build an identity based on external acceptance. We learn that to be loved and recognized, we must behave in certain ways. We create a social mask, or as Jung calls it, the persona. The persona represents the self we show to the world. It is shaped by the expectations of family, school, culture, and even religion. If we grow up in an environment where financial success is highly valued, we may develop a persona that makes us appear ambitious and driven, even if deep down we desire a simpler and more creative life. In early adulthood, we are completely immersed in constructing this external identity. We choose careers, relationships, and even hobbies based largely on what will bring the most social approval. It seems like the right path. After all, everyone around us does the same. However, the problem arises when we confuse this mask with who we truly are. As the years pass, something begins to emerge. We may have achieved a prestigious position, a stable relationship, or even a loving family, yet we feel a deep restlessness. Questions like, is this all there is? Or, who am I beyond my job, my role as a parent, my social status? Start to surface. This is the first sign that the persona, which once seemed sufficient, is no longer capable of sustaining our search for meaning. For Jung, this dissatisfaction is not a problem, it is a calling. What feels like discomfort or even an existential crisis is actually an invitation to embark on a much deeper journey, the discovery of the true self. This transition, which usually occurs between the ages of 30 and 40, marks the beginning of the second half of life, the phase where true transformation begins. Many see midlife as a decline. Modern culture reinforces this idea by valuing youth above all: young bodies, vibrant energy, relentless ambition. Aging, on the other hand, is often seen as a loss of beauty, strength, and opportunities. But according to Jung, this view is completely wrong. Midlife is not the beginning of the end, but rather the start of a much deeper and more meaningful journey. He believed that the midlife crisis is not a sign of failure, but a call for a new purpose. This transition manifests in different ways. For some, it is a silent dissatisfaction, a feeling that something is missing, even though everything seems right externally. For others, it comes as an abrupt crisis, a sudden career change, an unexpected divorce, an uncontrollable desire to break free from a life that no longer makes sense. However, this awakening can be frightening. After all, we have spent our entire lives following a path defined by society, seeking external validation and meeting expectations. Now, we are confronted with a question that can feel overwhelming. If I am not just my persona, then who am? Jung saw this phase as an essential moment for psychological and spiritual growth. He invites us to look within, question our choices, and rebuild our identity, not based on what others expect of us, but on what truly resonates with our essence. Carl Jung called the journey of the second half of life individuation, a process in which a person begins to integrate all parts of themselves, their fears, repressed desires, unexplored talents, and even unconscious traumas. The goal of individuation is not to become better in an external sense, but to become whole. In the first half of life, we focus on fitting into the world. We seek success, acceptance, and belonging. But as we enter the second half, we realize that merely existing within social norms is not enough. We need to find real meaning. Individuation involves reconnecting with our authentic self, which has always existed but has been silenced by the persona we built to please others. This process invites us to explore who we really are, what we truly want, and what our deepest values are without the influence of external expectations. This journey can be challenging because it often means deconstructing deeply ingrained beliefs. We may realize that we are not as rational as we thought, that we have passions and talents we never explored, or that we are living a life that no longer represents us. Often, this transformation leads to external changes. People leave careers that no longer make sense, radically shift their lifestyles, or dive into new interests such as spirituality, art, or philosophy. But most importantly, individuation is an internal shift, a realignment with who we truly are. Jung believed that this process is not a luxury or an optional choice, but a necessity for those who wish to live an authentic life. Without individuation, we risk spending the later years of our lives feeling empty, never truly knowing ourselves. But for this process to happen, we must confront one of the most challenging aspects of the human psyche, the shadow. If individuation is the path to becoming whole, then there is an inevitable obstacle on this journey. Our shadow. Jung defined the shadow as the part of the psyche where we store everything we repress or deny about ourselves. It consists of our fears, insecurities, desires we consider unacceptable, unresolved traumas, and even unexplored potential. Everything that did not fit into our persona was pushed into the unconscious. For example, someone who was taught from an early age to always be kind and generous may repress their anger, never allowing themselves to express it. Someone who grew up in an environment where vulnerability was seen as weakness may suppress their emotions and develop a facade of coldness and detachment. The problem is that what we repress does not disappear. It continues to act in the unconscious, influencing our choices, behaviors, and even our destiny. When we do not face our shadow, it manifests in other ways. Projection. We see in others what we refuse to accept in ourselves. We might judge someone for being selfish when in reality, we struggle to set boundaries. Self-sabotage. We avoid opportunities, relationships, or challenges because we have unresolved fears. Emotional crises. We experience anxiety, anger, or sadness without understanding their true source. Facing the shadow is one of the most difficult but also the most transformative moments of individuation. It requires courage to look within and acknowledge aspects of ourselves that we would rather ignore. Jung believed that true maturity comes when we stop projecting our problems onto the external world and take responsibility for what we carry inside. The good news: when we integrate the shadow, we recover a valuable part of our psyche. We become more authentic, free from conditioning that limits us. We learn to deal with our emotions more effectively and develop a deep sense of self-awareness. This transformation is not just psychological, it also has physical and neurological effects. As we age, not only does our worldview change, but our brain also undergoes significant transformations. Contrary to the common belief that aging leads only to cognitive decline, modern research shows that the midlife brain actually becomes more balanced and efficient in many ways. One of the most notable changes is the increased integration between the brain's hemispheres. While in youth we tend to operate in a more polarized way, being either highly rational or highly emotional, over time, the two hemispheres begin to work together more harmoniously. This results in greater reflection, wisdom, and emotional resilience. Additionally, the amygdala, the part of the brain associated with fear and impulsive reactions, becomes less reactive. This means that as we age, we are less prone to emotional outbursts or impulsive reactions when facing challenges. We develop a broader perspective on situations and handle problems with greater calmness. These biological changes explain why many people report that after turning 40, they feel less anxious about others' opinions, more centered and more connected to their intuition. This doesn't mean that challenges and difficult emotions disappear, but rather that we develop stronger internal tools to navigate them with maturity. Jung believed that this natural evolution of the brain is directly linked to the process of individuation. As we integrate our shadow and free ourselves from the illusions of the persona, we become more conscious of our true essence. This newfound awareness translates into a more balanced state of mind and a more fulfilling life. With this new perspective, a shift in the definition of success also takes place. In the first half of life, success is often defined by external factors: professional status, wealth, recognition, and material achievements. From an early age, we are conditioned to believe that we must make it, achieve something great to prove our worth. However, as we reach midlife, we often realize that these achievements do not bring the deep satisfaction we expected. The relentless pursuit of external validation can become exhausting and unfulfilling. At this stage, a fundamental question arises: what truly matters to me? Jung believed that the second half of life should not be a continuation of the first, but rather a new chapter with different priorities. He saw this phase as an opportunity to redefine the meaning of success, shifting from an external to an internal approach. This transformation is reflected in several ways: less competition, more authenticity, the desire to prove something to others fades, making way for a need to live in alignment with personal values. Purpose over status. Fulfillment no longer comes solely from material achievements, but from activities that bring meaning and impact. Balance between work and personal life. Instead of chasing endless goals, there is a greater appreciation for inner peace and meaningful relationships. This transition does not mean abandoning ambition, but rather redirecting it. What was once a pursuit of external success transforms into a quest for genuine fulfillment, and this naturally leads us to the next step: self-actualization. If in the first half of life we seek security, acceptance, and success, in the second half a deeper need emerges: the search for meaning. Carl Jung, along with thinkers like Viktor Frankl and Abraham Maslow, saw self-actualization as the ultimate goal of human existence. But what does it mean to be self-actualized? For Jung, self-actualization is not about reaching a final state of perfection, but about living in alignment with our true essence. It means embracing all aspects of ourselves, including those that have been repressed or neglected. Abraham Maslow, known for his hierarchy of needs, describes self-actualization as the highest level of human experience, where we seek purpose, inner growth, and the authentic expression of who we truly are. He observed that self-actualized individuals tend to live with authenticity. They do not try to be something they are not just to please others. Have a strong sense of purpose. Their energy is directed towards something greater than themselves. Value deep experiences. Small moments of connection, creativity, and spirituality become more important than material success. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and author of Man's Search for Meaning, also emphasized this idea, arguing that happiness cannot be pursued directly. It is a byproduct of a life filled with purpose. Through his experiences in concentration camps, he found that those who had a reason to live were the ones who endured suffering with the most resilience. Self-actualization, therefore, does not mean that life becomes easy or free of challenges. It means that we find an inner purpose that guides us, making us more resilient and satisfied with our journey. And the most interesting part, studies show that midlife is precisely the period when people report an increase in life satisfaction. Society often portrays midlife as a period of decline, the end of youth, the loss of energy, the beginning of limitations. However, research shows that this perspective is far from the truth. Studies indicate that people between the ages of 40 and 50 often report greater life satisfaction than they did in their younger years. But why? The answer lies in the internal transformation that occurs during this phase. Over the decades, we go through challenges, learn from mistakes, overcome obstacles, and become more aware of who we truly are. This maturity brings significant benefits. Less concern about others' opinions. Over time, we realize that we do not need external validation to feel complete. Greater clarity about what truly matters, illusions about what brings happiness begin to fade, making way for a genuine focus on what holds real value. More authentic relationships. Instead of maintaining superficial connections or relationships based on convenience, there is a deeper desire for meaningful connections, appreciation for the present moment, Many people report that, rather than constantly worrying about the future or the past, they begin to truly value the present. Midlife, far from being a decline, can be a rebirth. It is a period where we finally free ourselves from the societal pressures that shaped us and begin to live according to our own truth. This is Jung's great revelation. Life does not begin in youth, but when we truly find ourselves. Society teaches us that youth is the peak of life, but Carl Jung had a completely different perspective. For him, the first half of life is merely a rehearsal, a period of building identity, learning, and adapting to external expectations. But it is in the second half that the true journey begins. Midlife is not the beginning of the end. It is the start of something much deeper and more authentic. It is the moment when we stop living merely to meet external expectations and begin to seek what truly resonates with our soul. If you are in this phase and feel that something is shifting within you, know that this is not a crisis. It is a call for transformation. Individuation can be challenging because it requires us to confront our shadow, let go of old beliefs, and reconnect with our true self. But at the end of this journey, we find something invaluable, a sense of wholeness and authenticity that no external validation can replace. So if you feel your life is taking a new direction, don't resist, embrace the change. According to Jung, this is precisely when life truly begins.